The Nico era has started on Rocky Top. How much better will Nico at quarterback make his receivers and make Tennessee's offense look more like 2022? We'll discuss here on a Wednesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome into your Locked On Vols Wednesday edition. I'm your host, Derek Kane. As always, you can follow us at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols on X. And we're a part of Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Again, out of the country this week on vacation. So pre-recorded episodes. I have to say that every episode in case somebody new is tuning in. And we thank you for being here if that's you today. If there's anything breaking, we'll get to it when I get back in the country on Sunday. But do want to get some episodes out there for you. And today, I'm doing a series really this week. I wrote these over the last couple of weeks. Not necessarily a position preview, but kind of a position group look ahead for the spring semester. Like, for instance, today we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, the running backs, and the wide receivers. I'm going to give my take on where I think those rooms are, but numbers-wise, names-wise, who's in that room, who left that room, how hard is it going to be to, duplicate that production or amplify that production, and who are the new kids on the block? Who is new in these rooms? So that's what you have to look forward to here on today's show. We'll eventually work our way through every single position group in the coming weeks, but gonna hit 3 position groups on the offense side of the football here today. So Nico era, it's officially here. Yeah, we got to see it in the Citrus Bowl. It was a whole lot of fun. 4 total touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 designed quarterback runs into the end zone, 151 passing yards. He was 12 of 19, I believe, 151 yards. And really, that those passing stats, I've been calling it pedestrian, but they could have been a whole lot better. A couple of drops. There was one route where a deep route down the near sideline, Ramel Keaton just stopped running. You catch that ball, some of those balls aren't dropped, so maybe you're knocking on the door 200 yards through the air. But I've continuously said, hey, he just took what the defense gave him. He was smart about it. And, for a defense in Iowa that allowed 4 rushing touchdowns on the season, Tennessee had 3 rushing touchdowns in the game, all from their quarterback, Nico Iamaleava. And then, of course, 232 yards on the ground between Iamaleava, Dylan Sampson, and Cam Selden. So I thought it was a really, really good opening day, if you will, for Nico. So the Nico era is here. Will he be a disappointment? Well, it determines on how high that bar is. I don't think he's going to be a disappointment, but I say that because, he's gotten so much hype and he's been so hyped up for the last couple of years, the recruiting cycle, when he committed, when he signed, when he's a backup, and now that he's the starter, that I fear if he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy, I fear if he doesn't throw for 40 touchdowns, then people are going to consider him a bust, whereas he could have a really, really nice season, just not be in the Heisman conversation. And, my fear is people won't recognize that. But, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. As always, as soon as he throws his first interception, as he throws his first, bad ball, that Tennessee fans are going to be griping, oh, name, image, and likeness, money not well spent. What's that investment? That's just, how it is. Of course, that's with any quarterback, regardless of any hype, coming into each season. So Nico's coming up, and I'm excited to see what he can look like. For I wish he would gain some weight. He's at 210 pounds right now. I'd like for him to get around 220, but he's already put on 15 pounds since being on campus. Took home Citrus Bowl MVP honors, capped his day with an 18-yard touchdown throw to McAllen Castles. Looked really, really good. So he is going to be replacing Joe Milton, who I feel like was not spectacular this year. Obviously, when you look at the numbers, Josh Heupel's last 8 offenses, can't say that again, have ranked, let's see, it's last 5. His last 5 offenses have ranked inside the top 8 in total offenses in the country. This year was not one of those years. And, your quarterback has a lot to do with it. It's not all his fault, but quarterback does have a lot to do with it. But you know, a lot of people are just trying to make out Joe Milton as being this horrible, horrible, horrible quarterback. You still won 9 games. It's a testament to where this program is. Sure, Joe Milton was far from perfect. On the season, he had 27 total touchdowns. He had 7 rushing touchdowns, 20 passing touchdowns. He had 5 interceptions. He completed 65% of his passes, which was easily the highest completion percentage of his career. 2,813 yards. He gained 437 yards on the ground. Now his net, I believe, was 299. So you got to take into account sacks in that consideration. But he had the most rushing touchdowns for a Tennessee quarterback since Josh Dobbs. He had 12 back in 2016. He capped his Tennessee career with a career day, 383 yards passing, 6 total touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns, two rushing touchdowns. The first Tennessee quarterback to account for 6 total touchdowns since Jonathan Crompton did so against Memphis back in 2009. So again, that's against Vanderbilt, not a very good team. I thought that he played good football from that Alabama to Kentucky to UConn stretch, probably his best football. They did it in a Tennessee uniform, didn't play particularly well against Florida, didn't play particularly well against Missouri. So, you kind of pick your spots here, but he is far from the worst quarterback Tennessee's had here in the last 15 years. That is for sure. If you are, gashing the teeth and being frustrated at Joe Milton's performance this year, it just goes to show you how good Tennessee had it with Hendon Hooker. It just goes to show you how good the program is right now with Josh Heupel. And that's a good thing. And again, I'm not saying expectations should be lower. They shouldn't. But they still need to be realistic, in my opinion. So Joe Milton is gone. Nico Iamaleava is here. And what's the rest of that quarterback room look like? Well, for Nico, his backup quarterback is going to be incoming 4-star signee Jake Merklinger. Consensus top 10 quarterback from Savannah, Georgia, where he attended Calvary Day High School. Doesn't matter if you looked at On3, at Rivals, at 247, at ESPN. He was a top 10 quarterback in this class. Led his team to a deep playoff run as a senior. Was here for bowl practices. And, is going to hit the ground running here in the spring semester. He got an offer from Georgia, which is the home state school. I don't know if it was committable. I'm sure if he really wanted to go there, they would have probably allowed it. But he ultimately picked Tennessee over North Carolina. I like a lot about Jake Merklinger, and he's going to be that backup quarterback likely. If he's not ready to be the backup quarterback, then you're going to have Gaston Moore, who is still a walk-on. Thought Gaston Moore would be one of those candidates to be a walk-on turned scholarship player, but with Tennessee's scholarship restrictions over the next couple of years, it just wouldn't make sense. But Gaston Moore's back, walk-on. He's a veteran. He is the most. We make the jokes about Jacob Warren being able to teach a master's class on the tight end position in this offense. Well, Gaston Moore ran it at UCF, as a freshman. He didn't start, but as a freshman, followed Heupel to Tennessee, and he's been serving as a third-string quarterback or a backup quarterback ever since. And he's a really, really good guy to kind of have in the room. He's about 6'3", about 215 pounds. He's not a shrimp. He's got a decent arm. But if Jake Merklinger is not ready to be your backup quarterback, then Gaston Moore will start out as being your backup quarterback, just as he was in the Vanderbilt game last year, the Orange Bowl, and then the Citrus Bowl game, this year. So you got Gaston Moore, Jake Merklinger, Navy Schuler, son of VFL Heath Schuler, still on roster. Ryan Dermon is also on roster as well. So, of course, Tennessee's trying to recruit, trying to get a commitment from George McIntyre, as they're trying to lead that race and try to beat Alabama in that regard, as they're looking ahead to 2025. But the class of 2024 quarterback signee and Jake Merklinger on campus, ready to roll, and he is going to be your backup quarterback next season. So when we look ahead to the running back position, a lot to be excited about, because I think Tennessee's Cam Seldon, I think Tennessee's Dylan Sampson is going to pick up right where you saw Jabari Small, Jalen Wright kind of leave off from. I think Tennessee's run game is going to be solid. That's coming up next right here as we continue on with your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. I want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. Start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question: what's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has also created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster, and for free. LinkedIn Jobs isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best practice to hire. Hiring's made easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidate within 24 hours. All right, it's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus its leading competitors. And LinkedIn knows that small business owners, they wear so many different hats, might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is quick, it's intuitive, it's easy to do. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, well, they do apply. More to come here on Locked On Vols. All right, so we talked quarterbacks in segment number 1, how I think Nico Iamaleava can really be a guy that amplifies this offense for Tennessee moving forward. Again, 5 straight years, Josh Heupel's had a top 8 offense. 2022, Tennessee's offense led the nation in scoring, total offense, and rushing touchdowns. And that kind of brings us into where we are here in segment number 2 when we're talking about the run game. But nonetheless, Tennessee's run game's been really good. Tennessee ran for the second most yards in the SEC last year. Tennessee ran for 12th most in college football. Tennessee surpassed the 2,600 mark on the ground. That's only happened a couple of times in school history. Tennessee, again, the biggest misconception about the Josh Heupel offense is, that they don't run. That is completely and factually inaccurate. And I do radio hits all the time during football season and leading up to the bowl game. And, for out of market towns. And again, I'm close to it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a diehard Tennessee fan. We know the ins and outs. Okay. But I love it. It's my job and it's my livelihood. So I know everything about this team, or at least I try to. And when I hear people say, well, they've run it a little bit more this year. Joe Milton's not as good as Hendon Hooker. So Tennessee's kind of changed the offensive philosophy. They've started to run it a little bit more here. No, that is so inaccurate. Tennessee averaged 199.7 yards per game on the ground in 2022. That's 200 yards a game. Tennessee averaged 202 yards per game on the ground in 2021. Tennessee averaged 232 on the ground per game in 2023. Tennessee runs the football. And Tennessee does it effectively with a couple of different guys. Now, we can have this conversation on, Jalen Wright, for instance. He was phenomenal in 2023. I've often made the case that he needed to get more carries. How much better could those stats have been if he wasn't just 1/3, the biggest third? We'll say that he owned about 40% of the workload in the backfield, 44%, 40%, somewhere around there. I could actually do that math and tell you, but I'm not as good at my job. But, what if he got 60% of the workload? What if he got 70% of the workload? Look at Cody Schrader at Missouri. He got 98% of the workload on the ground for Missouri. It was totally different. So could Jalen Wright have been better if he got more touches? I don't know. Maybe Jalen Wright was so effective because he was only getting about 40% of the workload. So that's kind of the balance you want to draw. Tennessee had 3 running backs this year. 3 running backs did a great job. Jabari Small had a good year. Dylan Sampson had a good year. Jalen Wright obviously had a good year. I would have liked to seen it be more of a 2-man rotation. That way, you're seeing your RB1, which was Jalen Wright, kind of pick up 60% of the workload, and then the other one 40%. Maybe that's what we see in 2024 with Dylan Sampson and then Cam Seldon. How much can Peyton Lewis help you? Running back signee coming in. How much can Khalifa Keith, maybe Deshaun Bishop? We'll see. Big spring for those guys. But if the Citrus Bowl was any indication, it's going to be a whole lot of Dylan Sampson with a nice dose of Cam Seldon. And so, we'll see what that looks like. But nonetheless, Dylan Sampson is a really, really good player. Had a minor role in 2022. Picked that role up in 2023, 8 total touchdowns. Led the Vols individually with 8 total touchdowns. 779 yards from scrimmage, 8 total touchdowns, as I mentioned, 7 rushing, 1 receiving. 779 yards from scrimmage, 604 rushing yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 17 receptions, 175 yards. Really good. 4 total touchdowns in the not the Music City Bowl, but played in Nashville against Virginia in the season opener. He had He took over the fourth quarter at Kentucky with 91 all-purpose yards in the fourth quarter alone. Scored a pair of touchdowns against UTSA. And in the Citrus Bowl, I said this a couple of times, he had the quietest 133-yard performance that you've ever heard of. He didn't find the end zone, but man, he was really, really good. So Dylan Sampson is in a good spot. Selden, who really didn't see time at all in the backfield outside of mop-up duty this past football season, with the opt-outs of Jabari Small and Jalen Wright, he was RB2 for the Citrus Bowl. Did a nice job, 55 yards on 13 carries in that win, 106 yards total on the season, 25 carries. He appeared in 13 games, mostly on special teams. Nice blend of size and speed, 6'2", 222 pounds. Still learning, really, how to play running back because he was more of a receiver and kind of Mr. Do Everything in high school. A lot to like about Cam Selden, a whole lot to like. I mentioned Cleva Keith being in that room, another bigger body option, 6'1", 230 pounds, 24 yards on 11 carries this past football season, mop-up duty behind Cam Selden. Deshaun Bishop, who came on last spring, raised a lot of eyebrows. He's having a pretty good fall camp as well, the local product from Carnes High School. He was injured in fall camp, missed the whole season. But he's coming back in the spring, and we'll see what he can do. So that's what the running back room looks like. And then you add in the returners. You add in the new kid on the block. That's Peyton Lewis. 6 foot, 190 pounds from Salem, Virginia. Under Armour All-American. Tennessee beat out Penn State, Virginia Tech, South Carolina for the services of the Virginia tailback. Committed to Tennessee back on May 27th. 13th ranked running back in the 24 class. He is going to be an early enrollee. He's going to be here for spring, so that's good. He's also a track sprinter, state champion, in fact, and that's really, really appealing to football coaches. And hear a lot of good things about bowl practices with Peyton Lewis. Maybe he could be that third back next year. Maybe a smaller, maybe kind of a role similar to what Dylan Sampson had in 2022. But as much as we're excited about what's to come in the backfield for Tennessee, there's no way around it. You are losing so much production in the backfield, and that's part of college football. It turns over every couple of years. Now with the transfer portal, it can sometimes turn over every single season, which is frustrating. But Jalen Wright, phenomenal year. Again, became the 16th Tennessee running back to surpass 1,000 yards. He surpassed 2,000 yards in his career. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry. That led all FBS players at his position with a minimum of 100 carries. He was an all-SEC running back. Became the 19th player in program history to rush for 1,000 yards, He had 6 100-yard performances on the year, only 4 rushing touchdowns. Kind of a weird stat, right? Kind of like what we talked about last week with the against Ole Miss, that basketball stat, 34 stats, 25 assists, how we love that stat. Well, 4 rushing touchdowns, all 4 coming from explosive plays, 75 yards, 82 yards, 52 yards, 42 yards. All 4 of those explosive plays, touchdown runs, came on the first drive of the game. Jalen Wright was good. He was really good. And then for Jabari Small, man, he was just super productive. What a career for Jabari Small. 4 years, 323 carries, 1,643 yards, 22 touchdowns. That was in his first 3 seasons. This last year, he had 475 yards in 12 games on 95 carries. He had over 2,000 yards in his career. He scored 24 touchdowns total, which ranks 12th in school history. In 21 and 22, he scored 10-plus touchdowns. He was super productive, really productive. So Tennessee's losing a lot of production, but I do think the continued success of being top 5 in the SEC, being top 15 in the country, averaging over 200 yards on the ground per game, that should continue with this offensive line, the scheme, and of course Dylan Sampson and Cam Selden. There's a whole lot to be excited about. So Tennessee's run game, I would feel good about that heading into the spring. I would feel good about that heading into the 2024 football season. But of course, we'll see exactly what it looks like once fall camp gets around here. All right, when we come back, we will take a look at the wide receiver position for the University of Tennessee, how I think it's going to be a bounce back year for the Vols. That is coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. FanDuel Sportsbook, it is America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL regular season, it's wrapped up. Wild card weekend's wrapped up. We're heading into divisional round of play, and there's no better place to put some coin in your pocket, have fun watching the games than over at FanDuel Sportsbook. It is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can win $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150, win or lose. Some bonus bets. The app is so easy, so friendly, so secure. You can use it. I can use it. It's easy to use. Live same game parlays. You can find new bets in the Explore tab. Make Parlay in the Parlay Hub the best way to find those popular parlay picks, plus totals, spreads, and prop bets and more. All that is at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. One more time. It is FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a field goal with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So we talked quarterback. Nico Iamaleava here. We talked running backs, how I think there's going to be some continued success on the ground. Now we talk about wide receiver. And quarterback and wide receiver kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, in 2023, I like to think I know football. I do, but I never played quarterback. I never played wide receiver. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know every single reason why the passing game was not as explosive or why it struggled at points and times. What I do know is they're connected. Wide receivers need to help their quarterback out. Obviously, the quarterback needs to help their wide receivers out a little bit. As one goes, the other goes. So all of Joe Milton's struggles at points and times during the 23 season, I don't think it was all Joe Milton. I do think that his receivers played a hand in that. I mean, again, we talk about it, don't want to hound on it, but Ramel Keaton regressed, right? I mean, he regressed. No other way to put it. Ramel Keaton came in and was so fantastic in place of Cedric Tillman in 2022. And once he dropped that bomb in the Virginia game, man, it's like he was never the same. He kind of struggled with confidence. Still, he led Tennessee's receivers with 6 touchdowns, so he wasn't horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but he regressed. Dante Thornton was not who I or anybody at Tennessee thought he was going to be during his first season in the orange and white. He was a letdown, and even when he was starting to come around by moving him out of the slot to the outside, he gets hurt and misses the last couple of games of the year. Brew McCoy played in 5 games, was injured, out for the rest of the year. So, again, you're not only replacing the Biletnikoff Award winner, you're not only replacing another third-round pick in Cedric Tillman, you have all those other factors that I just mentioned. So the receiver position truly took a step back in 2023. Now, I'm here to say that I think that receiver position is going to take a nice little bounce-back season, get back to being what the receiver position has been at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, Kelsey Pope, Cody Burns, and that's going to be more the norm in 2024. So why is that? Well, Brew McCoy's coming back. It's huge, right? Is Brew McCoy an All-American? No. Is Brew McCoy Randy Moss? No. But is Brew McCoy good in this offense, knows the why of this offense, your most physical presence on those screen passes? Yes. He's a really, really good security blanket for a fresh new quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. So you got Brew McCoy back. Squirrel White's coming back. Dynamic playmaker out of the slot. Tennessee's leading receiver in 23 by a mile. Really, really good. Small in stature, but his play is not small on the field. That is for sure. You feel good about Squirrel White and what he did with his 67 receptions for 803 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ramel Keaton's gone, as we mentioned. Dante Thornton does come back. And here's about Dante Thornton. He was big. He was a big letdown his first 6 games in the orange and white. Those first 6 games, struggled to get in the lineup. 7 receptions, 89 yards, no touchdowns. He missed the South Carolina game with injury, was a complete non-factor in conference matchups against Texas A&M and Alabama. He had no catches in those games on a combined 2 targets. But then Brew McCoy got hurt. They tried to figure it out. Going into the Kentucky game, they shifted Thornton from the slot, backing up Squirrel White to the outside. And he was really, really good in that regard. Go back to that rough stretch, his first 6 games. Thornton also had 3 drops over those first 6 ball games, which was not good. But when he moved outside, hauled in 3 receptions, 63 yards in his first game outside against Kentucky. He had 2 catches for 26 yards in a blowout win against UConn. Hauled in a 46-yard touchdown in the first half at Missouri. And unfortunately, that was his best play of the year, where he made an incredible adjustment to get in front, to stack the cornerback, get in between the cornerback and the ball, kind of come back in and make that catch. Beautiful catch. But unfortunately, that's the play that he got hurt on the season. So that's unfortunate. But, we'll see what Dante Thornton can do in 2024. Others returning in that room, Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb. Hey, I like Chaz Nimrod a lot. I've said that several times here on this podcast. I like a lot of what he's done. Can they continue to step up and progress and be counted on as pivotal outside options? Where are they in the rotation now? We'll get to the newcomers here in a moment, but where are they in the rotation now moving forward? That's kind of an interesting question as well. Nathan Leacock, can he take a step? Because he didn't factor in at all as a true freshman. Nate Spillman, what can he do? Those are the returners coming back to the room. Again, we mentioned Keaton's gone. D. Williams, who was never really a factor after moving over midseason from the defensive backfield to the slot. He's gone. He's out of the room. But the guys coming into the room, we'll start with Chris Brazzell, transfer portal commit from Tulane. Really, really good option. Again, I try to kind of hold myself back a little bit because I was so excited about Dante Thornton. And again, I will continue to say, I'm not giving up on Dante Thornton. Size and speed, he's got an NFL body. He puts it together, he'll get drafted, but you got to put it together because he surely didn't last year. There's a lot to like about Chris Brazzell, a whole lot to like. Yes, it was at Tulane, but unlike Thornton, he was super productive at Tulane as a freshman. Came in, freshman All-American honors. He had, I want to say 5 touchdowns, about 789 yards receiving, outside body type receiver that they want. Chris Brazzell is going to come in, and I think he's going to have a big impact for Tennessee in 2024. You add in Mike Matthews, 5-star, who I think is going to start off in the slot. How quickly can he get into the rotation as Tennessee beat out Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, and others back in the summer for the 5-star wide receiver? And Braylon Staley, who is one of the best wide receivers in the state of one of the best players overall in the state of South Carolina. Braylon Staley's a guy that I think has a high upside in this offense as well. Can play the slot or the outside. Good speed, special teams player. I just think it's really easy to believe that this wide receiver group is going to bounce back. Now, here's the question, though. McCoy's going to play on one side. Squirrel's going to be in the slot. Is Chris Brazzell proven enough to be the starter on the outside? Will they give that to Dante Thornton? What about Chaz Nimrod, who's sitting here saying, what about me? I came in and started half the year, or started a couple of games after the injuries at wide receiver last year. What does Mike Matthews have to say about his, early impacts on trying to get some playing time? And if you do have a lot of guys that you believe in, will that rotation stay at just 3 when things are humming, or will it expand? It expanded this year because of injuries. But in 2 years, they get 3 that they like, and that offense is humming, they keep it. Can somebody else knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here. Let me get this series. We'll see. We'll see. There's a whole lot to like about this wide receiver position for Tennessee, and I truly, truly do believe that with Nico at quarterback, you're going to see a bounce back in production in the aerial passing attack for Tennessee, and Tennessee's offense will go back to being one of the top 8 feared most offenses in the country in 2024. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to kind of look at each position group over the next couple of weeks as we did here today, but I do believe Nico is going to be a good quarterback in this class. I do believe Tennessee's run game is not going to miss a beat next year. And I do believe Tennessee's wide receivers are going to bounce back in a major way in 2024. I'm not going to try to put the pressure on them and say 2024 offense is going to be 2022 offense because that's unfair. That was number 1 in the country. Hendon Hooker had a year of great success the year before. Nico's going to be a first-year starter, but I do think it's going to look more like that. How close? We'll see. And that's going to be the fun to watch over the course of a 12-game regular season with 2 bye weeks, no divisions in the SEC, and a 12-team college football playoff. Can't wait for that. All right, when we come back on tomorrow's show, have another guest on with me. We'll talk all things Tennessee, take a broader look at the Southeastern Conference for this offseason storylines heading in to the 2024 season. That is coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys. As always, thank you for tuning in. And until we speak tomorrow, have a great rest of your Wednesday, everybody.